Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butch-Chester. You guys know who I am and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about our topic. Today, we're talking about giving yourself permission to pause. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Come on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea because we are about to get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am excited about today because today we are looking at the power of the pause and giving yourself permission to do so. Now, I realize that for so many people, their life is going along smoothly. They are fine. They are happy. They have nothing to complain with. But the only thing they're starting to realize is that it's getting a little heavy or things are starting to kind of get a little thick. And that's because they have not taken a moment to pause. Our key scripture for today's episode is Mark chapter 6, verse 31. Mark chapter 6, verse 31. Come with me by yourself to a quiet place and get some rest. So I'd like to look at ways in which we can redefine the power of the pause. Welcome back to Daily Spark with Dr. Angela, everyone. We are talking about leadership meeting life today and the purpose that meets practical wisdom. Throughout all that we do, we have to look at ways that are going to help our personal life, but also help us in business, help our brand, or those things that we are doing that provide us work. Today, we are shifting the narrative on something that many high achieving women, but people in general, struggle with, and that is giving yourself permission to pause. Far too often, as women, we feel as though we are not going about our day strong enough, powerful enough, if we are not changing our hats multiple times, and quite often too many times a day. We forget to pause and just be ourselves. We forget to pause and check in with ourselves. Now, let me say this right off the top. A pause is not a weakness. Pause is not falling behind. Pause is not losing your momentum. I want to make sure you hear that. It is not losing your momentum. Once we have momentum, we're not going to do anything to sabotage that. It is not falling behind. It is a pause, not a stop. It is not weakness. It is not giving up or quitting. It is a pause. And a pause is strategy. So let's look at that scripture again. Mark chapter 6, verse 31. Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples, the same disciples who were doing the work, serving the people, and showing up faithfully. And what does he tell them here? Not, hey, you guys are slacking. Why are you slowing down? No, not that at all. He says, I see you. He does not say do more. He does not say push harder. He does not say stay visible. He says, I see you. He says, come away with me. Let's go to a quiet place. Let's get some rest. High capacity jobs, high capacity placements struggle with the pause. They don't struggle with the doing. They struggle with the pausing. And heaven forbid you have to stop. That's even harder. But we're just going to concentrate on the pause right now. It is okay to take a moment. It's just like it's okay to go and have lunch away from your desk. Why? Because they're at their desk. And sitting at your desk is a signal to others that you can be bothered, that you are not off the clock, that you are not in personal mode, that you are not enjoying personal time. So, the things that we do to pause could include something as simple as I'm gonna go have lunch in the lunchroom, in the break room, in my car, at a restaurant, in a cafe, downstairs, sitting at the park. You get what I mean. Just not at your desk. Now, I know what you're saying. Some people are going, but Dr. Angela, we have this project that's going on, and I can't step away. And I do understand. Really, I do. But what I find to be interesting is that as people go up the ladder, they step away for lunch. They take a lunch because they realize that it is important for yourself, for your person, to be able to step away, to recalibrate, to clear, and to come back, right? So they take a pause. I want you to give yourself permission to do so as well. So, why do high performers resist the pause? Well, let's talk about it a little. If you're a leader, a visionary, a builder, if you've ever said, I'm a maker, I'm a creator, those types of labels, you're used to being the one person that you can rely on. You're used to making things happen. Now, we used to have this conversation and remind people that it's okay to delegate, right? It is okay for you to be able to give someone else a piece of the thing that needs to be done. So if you are in charge, it doesn't mean that you have to carry everything yourself. The other people that have been hired for this position, they are ready to do what they've been hired to do. And that is, in their own way, make it happen in their space. People are really funny when it comes to this particular portion, because they will say things like, no one helps me. I don't understand what's going on. No one ever seems to step up to the plate. And I find that I'm just so overwhelmed with all that I have to do. But then when you ask them questions like, well, who did you give this task to? Who did you delegate this to? Who's responsible for this task? What team do you have working on that? The conversation seems to kind of get quiet or go left or right, whichever way you prefer, right? But it ends up just being wrong. And what I mean by that is that they're choosing to be in that place of overwhelm because they are not allowing others to help them. And if that sounds like you, I want to remind you to stop resisting the power of the pause. So pausing can feel like letting people down. It can feel like you're losing your progress. It can feel like you're missing opportunities. Or even worse, it can make you feel irrelevant or that you are stalled or have stopped altogether. And that is the furthest from the truth. The truth is that when you don't pause intentionally, life will force you to pause eventually. Now, we know this to be true because we hear about the stories of people having to go to the hospital due to exhaustion, or people are dealing with migraines, they're dealing with heart palpitations, they're noticing that their cortisol levels are just through the roof. There are these physical signs that you need to take a pause. Now, it's not always something that is a medical condition, though it can reflect physically in your body, it also can show up in the people around you, in that the team that was so excited, so ready to go, so, rah rah for what was going on, they've now lost some of that fire. They're now just like just hardly sputtering with energy because they're not being utilized. They are not being given a task because everything is being held onto, or what's the word there? It seems like someone is being the gatekeeper, and they really don't want you to do that. They want you to utilize their skill set. That's why they're, you know, in that position. So utilize the people that are around you, and realize that in using them, you are reminding them of how important they are, not only to the project, but to the whole of what you do. That allows you to then utilize your skill set, what you are awesome and amazing at that level, to do that thing which you should be doing instead of doing the other. So when you're forced to pause, it doesn't feel like a rest. It feels more like a breakdown. So now you are in the hospital, you're on bed rest, you have to take a medication, or you have to do a certain something according to your medical team. And now you've placed yourself in a category that you didn't need to place yourself in, simply because you would not take the pause. You're now looking more like you're dealing with a stop. So let's identify some of those signs that you may need to pause. You're productive, but you are not present. You're doing the work, but you are in a totally different space in your mind. You're accomplishing, but you're not enjoying. Sure, did you just sell your millionth product? Did you just make your millionth dollar? But instead of, celebrating with the team and everyone being excited, you're just kind of like, yay. Anyway, right? Like turn the page. That you're just not there in that moment. Are you showing up, but you're feeling depleted? If you're showing up and you're doing the work, but you're already feeling exhausted before you've done something, and that's not just physical exhaustion, but mental exhaustion as well. Now, for some people, the showing up and feeling depleted is also very much on the spiritual level. You're feeling as though you're getting the work done, you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, you are accomplishing the task, but you don't feel as though God is in the moment with you. You feel that you are working all alone, though you may be seated at a table full of people. So we have to be really aware of what's going on. We have to be really aware of how we are showing up and how we are doing what we are doing. Or perhaps your creativity feels strained instead of inspired. Now, if you've been following along, remember we were talking about how sometimes people are doing things and it's just performative, right? That far too often there is no joy, there's no gratitude, there's no why in what you're doing. It's as simple as up, down, left, right, pause, right, left, down, up, right? And it's like, ugh, it gets to be almost boring to you because it's performative. Well, the same can be true when it comes to your creativity. If it's feeling strained, if it's just starting to feel like it is a mundane pattern, but that it is not your rhythm of doing things, then you are not going to be able to settle into that creative space in which you usually operate. Now, when you have your rhythm, when you are in a creative space, sure, it could still be up, down, left, right, but it's going to be in a way that brings you that happiness, that brings you that fulfillment, that brings you a sense of accomplishment and not a sense of being on autopilot. So you're still doing well, but you're not doing whole. And that's the part that we really need to sit down, take a moment with ourselves, and see what is it that's going on with me today? What is it that I really need to have a conversation with myself about myself? So again, if you're doing well, but you're not feeling whole, it is time to have a conversation with yourself. And that is your signal, because leadership is not about output, it's about sustainability. And in sustainability, you should be able to see how this project can not only come to completion, but how it can be duplicated, how it can be replicated in a way that is going to continue to bring you happiness, bring you fulfillment, but also be a good steward of that resource within your industry for your client base. So, in all that we do, we need to look at, are we being our best in what we are doing? Alrighty, everyone, it is time for us to take a very short break, but when we get back, we will continue the conversation. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today, we are talking about giving yourself permission to pause, not stop, but simply pause. Let's jump back into that conversation. So, there is definitely a strategy when it comes to pausing, but we also need to look at the strategy of a sacred pausing. Now, let's reframe the pause for the right way. Pausing is not stopping your life. Taking a pause is realigning your life. So, here's how we can wrap our minds around a positive pause for strategy. Number one, pause to reconnect to your vision. Now, I know that many of you are already doing a version of this. You are having your weekly, bi weekly, quarterly reconnect to vision. You're sitting down not only with yourself, but with your teams, with any sub teams that you may have, and looking at, are we still connecting to vision? If we are, what are we doing? If we aren't, what happened? And how do we need to get back on track? So, the pause to reconnect with vision is a very important and vital step, though you may be calling it something else. As long as you're doing it, that's what's important. When you're always moving, you don't always evaluate. So, a pause asks the question, is this still aligned? Is this still connected to what we said we were trying to accomplish? If it is aligned, great. If it isn't aligned, figure out why it isn't aligned. And then what do you need to do to get back into alignment? A pause asks, is this still necessary? If this thing is still necessary, then of course you're going to continue to do it. But if it is no longer necessary, instead of just hitting the stop button, I want you to ask yourself, why is this no longer necessary? You are not asking yourself to talk yourself into making it necessary, but you are kind of doing a double check there by pausing to make sure that if the answer is no, this is not necessary, and you're able to cite not only one reason, but perhaps two or three reasons as to why this is no longer necessary, then you can rest assured that this is in fact no longer necessary. So in stopping that particular part of the process, or um, cutting it off completely, like choosing to no longer utilize it, then you know that you are doing so from a wise point. If you need to get other people involved in that conversation, then pause and invite them into the conversation so that they too can share their input. If they agree with you that it is no longer necessary, then you are, I hate to say checking the boxes, because sometimes we do things to simply check a box. But in this scenario, I want you to really look at, we're checking these boxes off because we've had conversation about them. We are really doing our due diligence to make sure that we are not wasting resources, be it that that resource is manpower or finances. So asking yourself these questions are very vital to not only your success, but making sure that you are being a good steward of the resources in which you possess. A pause also asks, is this still mine to carry? Far too often, and especially talking to my women out there, we carry things that do not belong to us. You could be carrying something that belongs to a parent, that belongs to a sibling, that belongs to your spouse or a loved one. You could be carrying something that belonged to the person that was in your position previously. And it was their burden. It was their thing to carry, but it is not yours. So in looking at, is this still mine to carry? I want you to ask yourself, why was I carrying it in the first place? Is this mine, or does it belong to someone else and I was simply trying to help them carry their heavy load, and I now see that the load has shifted and you are carrying 100% of it. You are now in possession of the load. If that is the case, oh, please stop where you are. Put it down. That is not yours. If it is something that is yours to carry, then I want you to ask yourself, where am I in the process of the journey of the carry? So for a lot of the things that you do in one's life, you understand that this thing that I need to carry, it will be mine for the next year, for the next 2, for the next 5, for the next 10. Or perhaps this is only mine to carry until the end of the day. If you had a 24-hour holding of an issue and you found that here we are 90 days later and it's still tucked away in your pocket, oh, please remember to check your pockets at the end of the day. Right? The same way that our mothers used to tell us to make sure that we would check our pockets before laundry day, to make sure that there was nothing in that nice little jean pocket that you had on when you were in school. Well, the same is true for life. Check the pockets of your day. And at the end of the day, make sure that there's nothing in there that does not need to carry over. If there is something that needs to carry over, by checking your pockets, you are made aware of it again at the end of the day. Is this mine to carry tomorrow? Yes. Great. Put it next to the keys and we'll grab it on our way out. If it is not, then place it in the garbage. Place it, you understand what I'm saying. Place it where it needs to go. File it accordingly. Because again, I do not want you to carry. I do not want you to have unnecessary items, nor do I want you to be out of alignment. So our first pause is the pause to reconnect to vision. Secondly, we want to pause to restore capacity. You cannot pour leadership into others from an empty place. Far too often, we have people that are operating from a deficit themselves and they are trying to pour into others, and what they're pouring is not as strong as it could be. It is not as robust a product as perhaps they had promised, because they themselves are running low on capacity. If they are, we're not going to guilt them. We're not going to shame them. But instead, if you feel that that is you, then this is a really great time to pause and look at, how can I restore capacity? Rest is not a reward. Rest is a requirement. First, I want you to pause long enough to let that settle with your spirit. Rest is not a reward. It is a requirement. How do we know that? Try staying up forever. what's going to happen? Your body is going to shut down. Your body is going to put you to sleep. Period. Care what you do, what you try to do, who you think you are, you're going to go to sleep eventually, because that is what our bodies were programmed and made to do. So rest is not a reward for hard work for the day, though it feels like it, right? Rest is a requirement. And here's the part that many people miss. Rest is not just physical. Rest also includes all the other aspects of our being. And we need to remember that we must rest emotionally. We must rest spiritually. And what I mean by resting spiritually is understanding that it is not by your power. It is not by your might, but it is by God's power. It is by God's might. It is by God's direction that you are able to do what you are doing. So if you are walking around trying to be in God mode, then I want to remind you that that is not your lane. That is not where you are supposed to be operating from. And that is why you feel overwhelmed, why you feel stressed, why you feel like you are just carrying so much because you are just doing more than you should. So rest is mental, rest is emotional, and rest is spiritual. But I also want you to remember to do one other thing, and that is to pause to hear clearly. When everything is loud, your schedule, your responsibilities, your notifications, it becomes harder to hear God clearly. So pauses create space for clarity. And clarity, that's what saves you time, energy, and missteps. So pause, if for no other reason than to hear for clarity. And last but not least, I want you to remember to pause without guilt. Alrighty, everyone. I want to say thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. I hope that I have once again enlightened, inspired, and empowered you to be your best self. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.